I'll share my screen as well. And it hasn't. Okay, good. Now we shall all behave ourselves very, very nicely so that Skype doesn't even realize we are all there, okay? Okay. So, like I said, we'll just start with the Gita dhyanam. So, would you all like to repeat these shlokas after me? Yeah. Okay. Now, these are not in the usual Anushtup chand, which is the 8, syllables in each line, which is the usual in the Bhagavad Gita. So the tune is it's slightly different. So it goes like this. Parthaya pratibodhitam bhagavata. Parthaya pratibodhitam bhagavata. Narayanena swayam. Narayanena swayam. Vyasena grathitam Purana Vyasena grathitam Puranam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshiniം Bhagavatim Ashtadashaധ്യായിनीम्
Advaitavarshini
Bhagavatim Ashtadashaധ്യായിनीम् Amb Tvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim Amb Tvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim. So this verse, the meaning is, Lord Narayana personally enlightened Partha with you, O Bhagavad Gita, O Divine Mother, the ancient sage Vyasa then incorporated you within the text of the Mahabharata. O destroyer of rebirths, she who showers the nectar of non-dual knowledge, comprising of 18 chapters, I meditate on thee, O Bhagavad Gita, O affectionate mother. Amba. Namostu te vyasa vishala buddhe Phularavind. Okay, sorry. Namostu te vyasa vishala buddhe Phularavinda tapatra netra. Yatapatra Yena tvaya bharata tailapurnaha. Yena tvaya bharata tailapurnaha. Prajvalito jnanamaya pradipaha.
Prajvalito jnanamaya pradipaha.
I offer my obeisances unto you, O Vyasa, who are of profound intellect. Your eyes are as beautiful as the petals of a fully bloomed lotus. You have ignited the lamp of knowledge after filling it with the oil of Mahabharata. Prapanna parijataya
Prapanna parijataya
Totra vetraikapanaye
Totra
Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya
Jnanamudraya Krishnaya
Gita Duhe Namaha.
Gitamrita Duhe Namaha.
I offer my obeisances to Lord Sri Krishna. You fulfill all desires of those who take shelter of you. Holding a whip in one hand and showing the symbol of knowledge in the other, you are the milker of the nectar of the Gita. सर्वोपनिषदो गावो
सर्वोपनिषदो गावो
दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः
दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः
पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता
पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता
दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्.
दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्.
This Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads, is just like a cow. And Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink the nectarian milk of Bhagavad Gita. Vasudeva Sutam Devam
वसुदेवं सुतं देवं
Kamsa Chanuramardhanam
कंसचाणूरमर्दनम्
Devaki Paramanandam
देवकी परमानन्दम्
Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum.
कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्.
I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna, who is the son of Vasudeva, the killer of Kamsa and Chanura, and the supreme bliss of Devaki. Bhishma Drona Tata Jayadrata Jala Gandha. Sorry, go ahead. Bhishma Drona Tata Jayadrata Jayadrata Jala
जयद्रथ जला
Gandhara Nilotpala
गान्धारनीलोत्पला
Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani
शल्यग्राहवती
Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara
अश्वत्थाम विकर्णघोरमकरा
Duryodhanavartini
दुर्योधनावर्तिनी
Sotirna Khalu Pandavairananadi Sotirna
सोत्तीर्णा खलु
Khalu
पाण्डवैर्नदी
Kaivartaka Keshavaha
कैवर्तकः
Kaivartaka
केशवः
Keshavaha. The battlefield was like a very dangerous river, with Bhishma and Drona as the river's banks, with Jayadratha as its waters, Shakuni as its blue lotus, Shalya as its crocodile, Kripa as its current, Karna as its ever-changing tide, Ashwathama and Vikarna as its terrible alligators, and Duryodhana as its whirlpool. Even so, the Pandavas crossed over it safely with Lord Sri Krishna as their ferryman. Parasharyavacha sarojamamalam
आर्यास्तर्यवचः सरोजममलं
गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम्
गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम्
नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा
नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा
हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्
सम्बोधनाबोधितम्
लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः लोके
लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः
सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा
ते प्रीयमानं मुदा
भूयात् भारत पङ्कजं कलिमल भूयात्
भूयाद्
भारत
भारत पङ्कजं
पङ्कजं
कलिमल
कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे
प्रध्वं श्री
May this lotus-like Mahabharata, born in the lake of the words of Vyasadeva, son of Parashara, which is sweet with the fragrance of the meaning of the Gita, with so many stories as its stamens, fully blossomed by the discourses relating to Sri Hari, the destroyer of the ill effects of Kali Yuga, and which is drunk joyously in the world day after day by the pure devotees who are like the bees, bless us all with auspiciousness. Mukam karoti vachalam
मूकं करोति वाचालं
panghum langayate girim panghum
पङ्गुं लङ्घयते
langayate girim
गिरिं
yat kripa tamaham vande
यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे
paramananda madhavam.
परमानन्दमाधवम्
I offer my obeisance to Lord Sri Madhava, the source of supreme bliss, by whose mercy even the mute can speak poetry and the lame can climb mountains. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutas Yam
यं
Brahma
ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र
Varunendra Rudra
प्रमरुता
Maruta Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi
शृण्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः
वेदै साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैर् वेदै साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः गायन्ति यं सामगाः
सामगाः
ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा
ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन
ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन
मनसा
मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो
पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो
योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा यस्यान्तं
यस्यान्तं न
न विदुः सुरासुरगणा
विदुरसुरगणा
देवाय तस्मै नमः
देवाय तस्मै नमः
I offer my obeisances to that Lord Sri Krishna who is praised with transcendental prayers by Lord Brahma, Lord Varuna, Lord Indra, Lord Rudra, and the Maruts, and whose glories are chanted by the knowers of the Samaveda, whose glories are sung by the four Vedas along with their six subsidiary divisions, as well as by the Upanishads, who is seen within the hearts of the yogis who are absorbed in meditational trance, and whose infinite glories cannot be known even by hosts of devatas and asuras. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. So this kind of sets the background in a way, because it talks about how this Bhagavad Gita is within the Mahabharata and how Lord Sri Krishna, who spoke the Bhagavad Gita, is the Jagat Guru. Yeah. So Vande Jagat Gurum, Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Yeah. So he is the ultimate teacher for every living entity. So he himself has spoken this Bhagavad Gita. And it tells us how that battlefield was like a very dangerous river with Bhishma and Drona and Jayadratha and Shakuni, Shalya, Kripa, Karna, Ashwathama, Vikarna, Duryodhana. They are all immense fighters. And against them, you had this tiny Pandava army. And we shall see how small actually the Pandava army was. So I'll just take you quickly through just setting the background here. So we already covered this earlier, that Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 sections, the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and the Jnana Yoga section. So first 6 chapters deal with Karma Yoga, the next 6 chapters with Bhakti, and the last 6 with Jnana Yoga. And Acharyas tell us that the 6 chapters in the middle, the Bhakti Yoga chapters, are the most important. So it's not that the Bhagavad Gita actually works like a ladder that you go through this to reach the top. No. So you work your way to the middle. Okay. And why is bhakti sitting in the middle then? So there are many reasons given by various acharyas. One is that it is like a precious little pearl and it's protected on either sides by both karma and jnana. The second is that it is a great secret. And Krishna himself tells us that in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that in 4th chapter, 3rd verse, as well as in the 9th chapter, the 2nd verse. So he says, Rahasyam idam uttamam. He says, this is the topmost secret that I'm telling you. And why am I telling you? Because you're my friend. You're my devotee. Okay, bhakta si. So you are my devotee. So bhakti is topmost secret, and I'm telling you because you're my devotee, because you are my bhakta. And then the other reason is that without bhakti, karma and jnana yogas are both considered dead. The reason is, if you look at the Bhagavat Mahatmya, Srimad Bhagavat Mahatmya, in that the story actually starts with how Bhakti Devi is sitting there and crying. Why? Because she has lost her 2 sons. Okay. And they are Jnana and Vairagya. So it is only through bhakti that complete Jnana and complete Vairagya actually arise. Okay. So karma and Jnana both depend on bhakti for being success. And we'll see all that as we go on as well in the 4th chapter. No, we are not taking any questions now. We'll keep it for a little later, okay? Otherwise, we'll never go ahead. Okay. So just looking at the distribution of verses in the Bhagavad Gita. So you have Krishna who speaks. There are a total of 700 verses. So you have Krishna who speaks a total of 574. And you will see that in the first chapter, Krishna does not say a single word. Okay. He only starts speaking from the 2nd chapter after Arjuna says, okay, I surrender. I surrender to you. I am unable to make a decision. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You are my guru. You guide me. And it's only then that Krishna starts to speak. Arjuna, in the meantime, he speaks 20 verses in the first chapter itself, telling Krishna why the war is wrong. Okay. And we look at all those reasons, and they're all very valid reasons. And we'll also see why they are not so valid, given the circumstances. And Arjuna, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, speaks a total of 84 verses. The 11th chapter, he has 33 verses, and most of these verses are in praise of the Lord. 10th chapter and the 11th chapter, most of it is in the praise of Lord. And throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks about almost 30 questions. So some of the questions are in one verse itself. So a total of about 24 questions, with some verses having multiple questions. Now you have in the first chapter, Sanjaya speaking 25 verses. Now, do we all know who's Sanjaya? Yeah. So Sanjaya was he was the charioteer of Dhritarashtra. Now, Dhritarashtra was the blind king, and he was given the option by his father. Now, the father of Dhritarashtra and Vidura is Vyasadeva. Okay, so he was given the option by Vyasadeva. I'll give you divine eyesight. You can stay where you are and you can watch the battle. Vyasadeva had the hope that at least when he saw with his own eyes his sons being killed, he would stop the war. Dhritarashtra refused. Dhritarashtra said, no, I don't want that eyesight. Instead, give it to Sanjay, who's my charioteer, my most trusted charioteer. I trust him completely. And yes, Sanjay was very, very devoted to Dhritarashtra as well. But that did not blind him to Dhritarashtra's faults. He knew exactly what was going on. So he could be relied upon to actually give like a war correspondent, a completely unbiased reporting of what is happening on the battlefield. So he was selected and he was given this divine vision. And so from the second verse in the Bhagavad Gita, he starts to speak. And he is the one who speaks the last verse in the Bhagavad Gita as well, the last 4 verses in the Bhagavad Gita as well. So he's the one that kicks it off and he's the one that completes it. And Dhritarashtra speaks the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita. And it's a very interesting verse because it gives you an insight into his psychology, into his state of mind. Okay. So in the first chapter, we have a total of 46 verses. And so these are the various sections, and we'll look at it a little later. Now, coming back to the battlefield and coming to the number of people on the battlefield. So I just did an exercise a little while ago. So the Pandava army had what is known as 7 Akshauhinis, and the Kauravas had 11 Akshauhinis. Now, what is an Akshauhini? So this is how an Akshauhini is calculated, okay? And I'll leave you to go through it at your leisure. But it works out to 21,870 rathas, which is chariots, 21,870 gajas, elephants, 65,610. So 3 times this, okay? Ashwa, horses, and 109,350 Padasainikas, foot soldiers. So this is 5 times the number of rathas, chariots. Okay. So this total makes up 1 Akshauhini. This calculation is given in the Mahabharata. Okay. Now, so I just did a little calculation here. Now I have assumed that in a chariot, there would be 2 people, the driver and the person who's fighting. Usually there would be more than 2. Usually, because if there is a person, if the fighter is a spear thrower, you would have a person who's handing him the spears at all times. So there's another helper at the back. Okay, but I have assumed, just for calculation, for the base minimum calculation, that there are 2 people per chariot. The same in elephants. I've just assumed 2 people. Horse, I've assumed 1 person. Foot soldier, obviously 1 person. Okay, so a total of, per Akshauhini, we have said you need 21,870 chariots in one Akshauhini. Which means in one Akshauhini, you have so many men, 43,740. And so on. So in one Akshauhini, the minimum number of men is 262,440. So 7 Akshauhinis is 1.8 million. 11 Akshauhini, 2.8 million. And the total 18 Akshauhinis works out to almost about 5 million people. Now, this is just the fighters. Okay. Now we also have to assume that there were cooks, there were the guys who took care of the horses and the animals and fed them and took care of them. So you're looking at least another couple of million, at least. So this war was a massive, massive, massive war. Okay. You have tens of millions of people who actually die in this war. Because again, the Mahabharata tells us that none of them, not one of them, other than the 5 Pandavas, survived at the end. Okay. So this is the scenario we're walking into. So this is the setting. It's this huge ocean of people that are standing there on the battlefield. And you have, let's open up our Bhagavad Gita. And you have Dhritarashtra asking his first question. Okay. So again, would you like to repeat after me or shall we read it together? Repeat? Read? Yeah, okay. Dhritarashtra uvacha
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच
dharmakshetre kurukshetre
धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे
samaveta
समवेतायुयुत्सवः
mamaka pandavaschaiva
मामका पाण्डवाश्चैव
kimakurvata sanjaya.
किमकुर्वत सञ्जय.
Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra desiring to fight, what did they do? Okay. So let's look at this verse. Dhritarashtra uvacha. Firstly, while these are historical records, the names also have meanings. Okay. So you have Dhritarashtra. Rashtra means country or republic, right? Dhrita, holding on. So here you have a king, Dhritarashtra, who's holding on to his kingdom when it's not his own. The kingdom was actually Pandu's. And by rights, it should have passed on to Pandu's sons, which are the Pandavas. So Yudhishthira should have been king. Now, when Pandu died, the Pandavas were very little. So Dhritarashtra was supposed to rule as proxy for the Pandavas. And when the Pandavas came of age, he was supposed to pass on the throne to them. However, what he did was try every method to get rid of them. Now, while he didn't do it directly, his son Duryodhana, who absolutely refused to accept that his father could not be king and therefore after his father he could not be king. Now that mentality was actually supported and fostered by Dhritarashtra. And so when Duryodhana tried to poison Bhima or tried to burn the Pandavas down alive in the house of the Lakshagraha, in all these situations, Dhritarashtra, knowing everything, literally turned his blind eye. He was literally blind, and he was also dharmically blind. Okay, so he definitely did not know his duty, and he did not know what was right and what was wrong. So he decided, it's okay. If Duryodhana in the process can get rid of the Pandavas, wonderful. Then I can have my son as the king. Which brings us to his very first word here. Dharma kshetre. In the land of Dharma. Kurukshetre. In Kurukshetra. So Kurukshetra, the land of Dharma. So this war was being fought in Kurukshetra. Okay. Now Kurukshetra is considered to be a very holy place. It's a very holy place because it's connected to Lord Parashurama and the Kuru dynasty itself. So it's considered a place where dharma is fostered, where dharma flourishes. So his question is, in the dharma kshetra, Kurukshetra, samaveta gathered, yuyutsavaha, those people who are desiring to fight, who are they? Mamakaha, my sons, Pandavaha, cha, and the Pandavas. So right there, he's created a divide in the family. Usually, what is the chacha or the kaka supposed to be like, the uncle? They are the father, right? I mean, if the father's not there, these are fathers. In fact, in Tamil, we call them Chittappa or Periyappa. So the big daddy or the small daddy. You know, so they are supposed to be fathers. And here you have this man saying, my sons and the Pandavas and the sons of Pandu. Okay. Kimma kurvata, what did they do, O Sanjaya? What do you think they did, Dhritarashtra? When two huge armies, which, I mean, these armies actually consist of all the kingdoms from around the earth, divided in two. They are standing there. They are not on a peace march. What do you mean? What did they do? But that shows his agitation. What is his agitation? Not that, oh, the war is going to happen and people are going to die. No, no. His agitation is the war may not happen. If it is being fought in Dharma Kshetra, there is a possibility that because of the influence of the Dharma in that area, the minds of the two armies might change. And in that case, the war will not go on. And then we are back to square one. His fond hope is what? That the Pandavas will be defeated, they'll be killed, and Duryodhana can be the king unchallenged. And he already knows that the Pandavas are immensely powerful because just before the Mahabharata war, there was the war of Virat, where Arjuna single-handedly defeated the entire Kaurava army. So given that situation, Dhritarashtra is very aware that if the force of dharma which percolates that land comes into play, my army, Mamakaha, my people are going to lose. Which is what prompts this question from him to Sanjaya. Kimma kurvata? What did they do? Not even what are they doing? What did they do? And Sanjaya is so clever.
So sorry to interrupt you, Mataji. Very quickly, why is it a running commentary? Why did you ask? This has always been my question in my head. What did they do instead of what are they doing? The current versus the past. What's the difference here?
Okay, what did they do? In the sense, Has something already happened? Has the Dharma Kshetra played its role already? Are they already in talks for peace? Sandhi, is it already happening? What did they do? हमें देर तो नहीं हो गई? Has the war already started? His whole being is geared towards the war should start. What have they done so far? Have they started the war? I hope they have. Okay.
Thank you.
So then we come to Sanjaya. Now, Sanjaya is a very astute man. Okay. He knows his king. He's been with him for a very long time and he knows him inside out. Sanjay actually is aware of all the conspiracies which are happening in the palace. He's aware of everything that's happening. Okay. So he says, and repeat after me, please. Sanjaya uvacha.
Sanjay Uvacha.
दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकम्
दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकम्
व्यूढं दुर्योधनस्तदा
दुर्योधनस्तदा
आचार्यमुपसङ्गम्य
आचार्यमुपसंगम्य
राजा वचनमब्रवीत्.
राजा वचनमब्रवीत्.
Yes. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. So Sanjaya understands. Okay. Now, if you look at this paragraph, can anyone spot an aberration, something that should not be there, a word that should not be there? Yeah, 1 minute. Yes, Hardika?
King.
Which king?
King Duryodhana.
Yes.
He's
Why?
not the, yeah.
Yes, he's not the king. Okay. Raja vachanam abravit. Raja ne bola. Raja said. Now the Raja there is not, the Raja is sitting here in front of him, Dhritarashtra. But Sanjaya knows very, very well what is in Dhritarashtra's heart. So on one hand, he feels sad for this blind king who is blind by birth and who is also blind by dharma, who doesn't understand his duty, who is now standing on this precipice here and longing for all the wrong things. So what he does, in an effort to pacify that blind old king, he says, O king, after looking over the army, which has been arranged in a military fashion by the sons of Pandu, so after looking at the Pandava army, King Duryodhana, so he's telling him he's king, okay? Don't worry, he's king. King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. And now for the next, from 3 to 12, okay, we have Duryodhana speaking. And this shows us Duryodhana's mood. Okay. So now onwards, Duryodhana is speaking. Okay. Pashyaitam Panduputranam.
पश्यैतां पाण्डुपुत्राणाम्
Acharya Mahatim Chamum.
आचार्य महतीं चमूं
Vyudham Drupada-putrena.
व्यूढां द्रुपदपुत्रेण
Tava Shishyena Dhimata.
तव शिष्येण धीमता.
Now, this is Duryodhana speaking to his acharya, his guru, his teacher. Now, you would expect the language to be very polite, right? Now, here in Sanskrit, we have this where bhavan is aap, tvam is you, as in tum, okay? And also, Sanskrit is a very beautiful language where everything also depends on the tone of your voice. So you can say, Bhavan agachatu. So your tone is very nice, gentle. You are requesting them. Hey, Bhavan agachatu also means the same thing, but hey, you come here. The tone has changed. Okay. So aap idhar aaiye and aap aaiye idhar. So the tone, right? And here the words itself are wrong. Wrong in the sense, tava, pashya. Pashya means look. It's an order. Okay? Look. And tava, your. Tvam, tava. So tvam is tum, ya tu, and tava is tumhara. Okay? So he's talking to his guru. He says, Pashya etam. Dekho inko. Look at them. Who? Pandu putranam. The sons of Pandu. Acharya, he's calling him, hey Acharya, you are an Acharya, you're a great Acharya, you're a big man. Mahatim chamum, look at this great military force which the Pandavas have actually arrayed in front of us. Vyudham, arranged. Drupada putrena, by Drupada's son. Tava sishyena. Now this Drupada's son is actually your student. Look, he's now here in front of you. Now here, we have to go back a little bit in history. Drupada's son is Drishtadyumna. Now, there was this long-standing enmity, between Drupada and Dronacharya. So when Dronacharya defeated Drupada did a sacrifice, a yajna, and from the yajna appeared Drishtadyumna and Draupadi. He did the yajna because he wanted to have a son who would defeat Dronacharya. That was his reason for doing the yajna. And from that appeared Drishtadyumna and Draupadi. Now, at that time, there was Akashvani, which said, yes, Drishtadyumna will defeat Dronacharya and Draupadi will be married to the Pandavas, who will also be instrumental in defeating Dronacharya. Okay. Now, when Drishtadyumna wanted to learn the art of warfare, he went to Dronacharya. In fact, Drupad sent him to Dronacharya. Why? Because Dronacharya was the best teacher of warfare. So Drupad said, go to him. He will teach you. So Drishtadyumna went to Dronacharya, and Dronacharya said, yes, I will accept you, even though I know that you have been created to kill me. I shall still teach you everything that I know. Okay. So here, Duryodhana is taunting him. He says, Tava Shishya. See, your student. Your student only has come to kill you. Who told you to teach him? वो कहते हैं ना अभिभुक्तो. Your Pashya. Look. So his words are quite harsh. Okay. And he says, your dhimata, your student, he's very intelligent. Huh? See how beautifully he's arranged everything. And where has this intelligence come from? You. You only taught him everything. And now look, he's going to use it against us. Then he goes on. Atra shura maheshwasa.
अत्र शूरा महेश्वासा
Bhimarjuna samayudhi.
भीमार्जुनाय समायुधि
Yuyudhano viratascha.
युयुधानो विराटश्च
Drupadascha maharatha.
द्रुपदश्च महारथः.
So now he starts naming. He says, Atra, here. Shuraha. There are so many heroes. Maha Ishu Asaha. These are all very mighty bowmen. Who are they? Bhima, Arjuna, Sama Yudhi. There are warriors like Bhima and Arjuna. So Maheshwasa is actually bowman, right? So in this statement, do you see a problem? Whose name do you think should come first? Who's Arjuna, right? Because Maheshwasa, who's the best bowman? Arjuna. But instead he says Bhima. Bhima Arjuna Sama Yudhi. Yodha like them. Like who? Bhima and Arjuna. Why? Because according to Duryodhana, Arjuna was nothing. Why? I have Karna. My Karna can defeat Arjuna anytime. That was his thought process. He was a little more scared of Bhima because Bhima was more his strength, more his opponent, his personal opponent. Both were fighters with the gada, the mace. And so he puts Bhima ahead of Arjuna. Yeah, Arjuna thought, don't worry. Yeah, there are lots of bowmen there, mighty bowmen. And then he remembers, but then I have Karna. Na. Don't worry about them. But yes, Bhima is there. Oh yeah, and Arjuna is also there. Bhima Arjuna Samayudhi. Yuyudhana. Yuyudhana is another name for Satyaki. Okay. Now Satyaki actually happens to be a Yadava. He is a relative of Lord Sri Krishna. But he's fighting from the other side, from the Kauravas side. And we know that story, don't we? Because we had Lord Krishna sleeping and both Duryodhana and Arjuna approached him at that time. Yeah. Duryodhana went and sat next to the Lord's head, while Arjuna went and sat at the Lord's feet. Both of them had come to request the Lord to be on their side in the war, and they both landed up at the same time. So when the Lord opened his eyes, the first person he saw was Arjuna. So he says, oh, Arjuna, how are you? When did you come? What do you want? So Duryodhana speaks up. He says, but I was here first. So the Lord looks at him and says, oh, I didn't see you. But actually, I saw him first, and he's younger than you, so he should go first. Let him ask. And the Lord immediately says, I think I know why you both are here. You both are here because you want me to take part in the war. But let me tell you up front, I will not lift a weapon. I will not fight. However, you can have my army. My army is very massive. It's very powerful. The army is up there for either of you to pick up. So you can either have me or you can have my army. Now here, Duryodhana is going, oh, I hope Arjuna does not pick up the army. Oh, I hope Arjuna does not pick up the army. And Arjuna says, oh, Krishna, I only want you. I don't want the army. And Krishna goes, why? So he says, oh, if you are there, everything gets sorted, Krishna. I don't want anything. You just come with me. I just want you to be my charioteer. So Krishna says, okay. And here Duryodhana is like, ooh, yay! I got the army. And he goes, but then he doesn't want to show his excitement. Okay, so he goes, yes, okay. In that case, I will take the army. And he goes away very happily. Now, look at the implication of this. Okay. Who is Lord Shri Krishna? We spent so many days reading through the introduction. Who is he? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is Bhagavan. And what is the Bhagavan agreeing to do here? He is agreeing to become a servant, a charioteer. Now, the implication of this is very, very big. Because in a war, on a chariot, when you have the bowman shooting arrows from the chariot, he is not shouting out instructions to the charioteer. Turn left, turn right. Oh, go a little forward, go a little back. No, you know how he gives his instructions? He kicks the charioteer. So if he kicks him on the right, it means turn right. If he kicks him on the left, it means turn left. So here you have the Supreme Lord sitting there saying, okay, kick me, no problem. I'll accept it. Why? Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. You are my devotee. You are my friend. You are not envious of me. And therefore, I will do anything for you. You know what? And we've heard this, and I don't know if you have. Lots of people will come up and tell us, oh, you know what? Krishna, we shouldn't really worship Krishna. Because we have read that, one who worships Krishna, Krishna takes away all his wealth. And oh, yeah. And Krishna with his murli, and this I found it so funny, okay? Krishna अपने मुरली बजा के ना अपना सब धन को उड़ा देते हैं. So by just blowing on his flute, he'll blow away all your wealth. So we don't worship Krishna. We worship Lakshmi Narayan because Lakshmi ji is with him. Now here, the Lord is showing us by his actions that we just need to show him a little love, and in return, he gives himself to us. He is sitting there waiting to serve us. How wonderful is that? And how humbling is that for us? You know, who are we? We are the tiniest of tiny jivas. We have so many. So this earth falls into one galaxy. And scientists have discovered recently that there are many more galaxies. They've discovered a few other galaxies. Okay. So a galaxy is basically made up of many, many thousands, in fact, millions of stars. A star is like our sun, which has planets going around it and moons going around the planets and asteroids and everything else. Now, this is millions of suns with millions of solar systems around them. And this is one galaxy, multiple galaxies within one universe. And the Brahma Samhita tells us that from the Lord's pores, every time he breathes out, come out billions and billions of universes. Okay, now this tiny jiva is sitting in our tiny little house here, And we think that we are the greatest. But the Lord is saying, yep, you are great. That's why I'm with you all the time. I'm in your heart. It's because I love you so much. And if you reciprocate my love, I will do anything for you. And that the Lord shows here. He accepts the role of a humble charioteer. Okay. So here you have Duryodhana telling us about all the different Maharathaha. Okay. A Maharathi, in fact, I think I did something around that as well. Ah, yes, this one. So we have the two teams, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So you have the army size of 7 Akshauhini and 11 Akshauhini. And then the commander-in-chief here is Drishtadyumna. And here you have this whole line of commanders waiting. So the first one is Bhishma. When Bhishma falls, it's Drona. After Drona falls, it's Karna. After Karna, it's Shalya. And the last is Duryodhana. Okay. You have Maharathis. Maharathi is one who can fight against 60,000 warriors at a time. At a time. Okay. So on the Pandava side, you have only Arjuna, who's capable of doing that. On the Kauravas, you have Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and Ashwathama. Then you have Athirathis, Maharathi and Athirathis. So 10,000 at a time. So these are Yudhishthira, Bhima, Drishtadyumna, Gatotkacha, Satyaki, and Yuyutsu. And here you have Shalya, Somadatta, Bhurishrava, Bhagadatta, Jayadrata, and Kritavarma. So when it comes to the Athirathis, they are kind of equally matched. But look at the Maharathis. And look at the army size. Who would you expect to win? It seems like a no-brainer, right? The Kauravas should win. But the one person nobody ever takes into consideration is Lord Sri Krishna. But we shall see how Sanjaya actually very beautifully talks about that a little later. Okay. So we shall stop here today and we'll pick it up in our next class. So any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. So,
Sorry.
yes.
Oh, sorry, I'll let Hardik go first.
Yes,
Sorry.
Hardika.
So Raj Yoga is not a part of Bhagavad Gita.
So what is Raja Yoga?
Raj Yoga is mainly the eightfold path of living life. Like
So that is Ashtanga Yoga.
Physical form,
Exactly.
concentration, meditation.
Exactly. So that is Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga comes in chapter 6, 7. Chapter 5 and 6.
Ashtanga Yoga.
Ashtanga Yoga. So that comes in chapter 5 and 6, and that basically is under Karma Yoga.
Okay.
But then the Lord does not call it, what the Lord calls Raja Yoga is very different. He calls, in chapter 9, he calls Bhakti as the king of all knowledge.
Yeah.
Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam.
Raja Vidya. Yeah.
Okay.
So
there he is referring to, yes, there he is referring to Bhakti.
Bhakti. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And I have a very silly question. But what, according to you, are the 3 most important chapters of Bhagavad Gita? Like among all these 3. No.
That is
like
okay.
quite a lot of
I
people
can only say personally. Okay. And from what I have heard from our acharyas, okay. Chapter 12, which talks about bhakti. Okay. Chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga, is very, very, very important because it is a chapter which is so encouraging. It gives you all the options. It gives you the highest. And it says, you can't do this, do this. 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 It just takes you down that ladder. It doesn't take you up the ladder. And it is so encouraging. The Lord keeps giving you so many options. And then he tells us, by doing what, we actually become close to him. Okay. So chapter 12. Chapter 9 is where he gives you this most confidential knowledge. And then there is chapter 15, where he talks about Purushottam Yoga, which is how to connect to him and to his home. And then there is, okay, and then there is chapter 2, which is the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita, and chapter 18, which again is the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
And then there is chapter 10, which is the most beautiful chapter in terms of descriptions, because the Lord is saying how he is present, how you can see him in everything around us. So that is very beautiful. Chapter 11 is really beautiful because it talks about his Virat Roop.
Virat Roop.
Oh, don't get me started. And then everything is just so beautiful.
Enjoyed it visually as a child in Mahabharat. I really was like, I was very tiny at that time, but I was like,
Yeah.
and I saw animation for the first time, I think that time. Like people going
Okay.
inside and coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Yes, Prabhuji, you had a question.
I have got comments to make. For Hardika, my personal favorite is chapter 2. I'm a business person and I like to learn. And Karam Yoga is the vital part of that chapter. If there's a body, Bhagavad Gita is a body, then chapter 2 is the soul or the heart of the body. And last 18 verses are my most favorite, where we talk about Siddha Pragya, this good and bad times, and favorable and unfavorable circumstances in your life. So it teaches a lot of practical ways of living. So that's my favorite. Mataji, about the people, I mean, I've got comments to make about the people who say that Lord Krishna take away all the wealth. I was thinking on the contrary, I was thinking about his friend Sudamaji. That is such a beautiful story. And
Exactly.
he gave him so much wealth, so much opulence. I mean, he is a person with so much poverty, with 4 kids to nourish. They've been hungry for so many days at a stretch, no food, nothing for them, for the family. And the way he organized so much opulence for them, the king of that particular region, he was brought down to his knees. And he says, Sudama, you're such a poor person. How did you get this wealth, this much wealth?
That's
Uh,
right.
that is a beautiful story, and something that we can read about, and where Lord
True.
Krishna gives a lot of wealth.
True.
Mahalakshmi gives a lot of wealth.
That's
And
right.
Mahalakshmi encourages Sudama's wife that you should dress up well. You should not don't think like a poor person. Think like a very rich person. You're very rich. Um, Sudama ji, on one condition, accepted the wealth though. He said that, Lord Krishna, I'll accept your wealth only and only on one condition. He said, what's the condition? And he goes, if you do not make my mind, heart, soul engaged in the maya, the maya the maya of the world. I do not want to get over engaged in these things. Make sure that you are my number one priority. You take
That's
the
right.
hot seat. You take this driver's seat in my heart. Only then I'll accept your opulence. And that is a beautiful thing. If you, as a business person, if I'm doing a lot of things and I'm trying to invest in a lot of areas, then if I'm thinking that way, then it sort of changes the entire equation and my approach towards Bhagavad Gita. So that's where I find Bhagavad Gita is a very beautiful scripture. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Rivol Mataji. But literally, you set the scene so beautifully in the beginning. I was feeling like I'm in Gurukul. I'm like those four brothers in Ramayana. Little kids go to take Gurukul and then cleaning, sweeping all the hut around, and just with the petals and everything is clean and well prepared to receive the prasadam of first chapter. So beautiful explained. So nice,
Thank
Mataji.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mataji, I just wanted to ask.
Yes, Mataji.
What we read in the beginning before we started the Gita.
Yeah.
Who has written that?
Actually, the Gita Dhyanam is a collection of verses from different places. And this Gita Dhyanam is supposed to have been written by Sripada Shankaracharya. Yeah. Yeah. So you will find that, verses like Mukam Karoti Vachalam and Vasudeva Sutam, they'll appear in other places as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
So we'll meet next week. Next week,
Saturday.
next Saturday. Yes, we'll meet on Saturday. Okay, thank you very, very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So much, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
I'm not sitting next to you next time. What?